I'm going to be perfectly honest with everyone right now. The title of this video is clickbait. I don't hate Metal Gear. I don't think that it's particularly the best series ever made, and I don't like Hideo Kojima, but the reason I titled this video Metal Gear Solid is trash is because I want to make a bigger point. The hugest impact on game design, or just video games in general, has to be the Metal Gear Solid series. Like, I cannot think of any other game besides the other games that I'm going to mention later in this video that have the same kind of love that Metal Gear Solid does. It is no surprise that Metal Gear Solid is a series that is celebrated more so for its story rather than for its game design. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things that I love about Metal Gear that are very unique to the type of game that Hideo Kojima wanted to make with this series. But I just don't really like that the linear design of Hideo Kojima's games are copied. I don't want to have the story versus gameplay debate where I break down how story is does not belong in video games whatsoever, and I just want to go back to the good old days of when things used to be better. And you know what? That is a bunch of bullshit. I could name a lot of video games that have stories that I love that are not only my favorite stories, but my favorite games of all time. See the games that I put on the screen. There are so many things that a video game can do if the story is unique, because that game can then take the ideas that are supplanted in the story and find out how to make gameplay out of them. I think a lot of people already know about this really horrible design formula that has popped up in mostly modern games. And that design formula goes as follows: walk forward cutscene, look how pretty our game is. Walk forward cutscene, then like 5 or 10 minutes of gameplay. Walk forward cutscene, hey, look how pretty our fucking game is. Go fuck yourself. Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I would definitely make a top 10 or top 20 list of favorite games of all time, and Metal Gear Solid 3 would be on there, but that game is littered with the same design flaws that I described previously. I know that Metal Gear Solid is not the only series with these design flaws. Games like Uncharted, The Last of Us, Half-Life 1 and 2, these games have the same type of design philosophy where the designers are trying to give you both a gaming experience and a cinematic movie-like experience at the same time. And a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, those ideas clash with one another. Let's say that I want to play a game like Uncharted 2 and Donkey Kong Country. So I load up Donkey Kong Country and Uncharted 2, and immediately with Donkey Kong Country, I'm not bombarded with a hey, look how pretty our game and story is type of gameplay. I'm not given that. I can immediately play as an ape, and if I want to see the story, I can go into a cave and go look at the fact that all my bananas are missing. With Uncharted 2, you're going to have the train at the beginning where you have to climb up it. You know, I could make an entire 1 hour video essay out of Naughty Dog games and how linear they are. But if you want to see somebody do that, go watch Nakey Jakey's review on The Last of Us Part 2. It really is a video that sums up what I'm trying to say a little bit better than me. But I still have to say that games like Uncharted and The Last of Us are exactly in the same place as Metal Gear Solid was. They are games that were so influential that a lot of other games started taking inspiration from specifically the moments I mentioned earlier where it's walk forward, then a cutscene plays. You know what? I hate God of War 2018. I don't like it. I don't like the story. I don't like the gameplay. I really don't like this game, and I really want to say that this type of game design can cripple a game. In my opinion, it can make it into a piece of shit where it thinks it's much more important than it actually is, and therefore it becomes a pretentious high art piece where some douchebag in a fucking fedora comes out and talks about how amazing and how well thought out the game design is, because it's just a higher form of art. It's no longer just a game. It's like a beautiful movie that has all these moving things in it that really just get to you, because hey, here's a story about a guy and a kid he has to take care of, so therefore you care more about the story because you don't want to see a kid die, right? No, who gives a shit? No, I don't care. I want Kratos to spit in this kid's face and tell him that it's raining. All right, so where is Metal Gear Solid now? Because the last major Metal Gear Solid entry that was not hated by people like Metal Gear Survive was Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Now, I have a lot of problems with this game, but this game is the biggest overcorrection I have ever seen ever. It's like all the complaints that have been made about Metal Gear Solid have been fixed in a way, but then a whole bunch of new problems have arisen. And I could make an entire 1 hour video essay on how bad Metal Gear Solid 5 can actually be, but I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think it's fun. I'd probably give it like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. It has really bad AI. It gets really repetitive halfway through. It doesn't have a fun story at all. Like the game doesn't care anymore. And well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Metal Gear Solid 5 is not finished. Hideo Kojima could not finish it because he is the biggest. Just I don't like Hideo Kojima. I don't want to compare him to Michael Bay, but there are a lot of comparisons you can actually make between the two directors. Both Metal Gear and Transformers are about big giant robots punching each other, and both series have something to do with the military industrial complex in some way. I will give credit to Hideo Kojima where credit is due. I think that the writing in his games are a lot smarter. They're also really, really dumb too, and I could get into that in detail and make like a whole 1 hour video. I say, yeah. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about the story in Metal Gear. I want to talk about how that story unfolds. And with something like Transformers is not smart. Like, it's really dumb, and in fact, it's pro-military, whereas Metal Gear Solid is anti-war. Now, I don't think that Hideo Kojima is a bad person. I just don't like how egotistically self absorbed he is, and how he feels the need to act in a way where if something doesn't go his way, he's going to find you and he's going to kill your family. For example, there was an interview with the main writer, slash translator of Metal Gear Solid 2, named Agnes Kakaku. She slandered Hideo Kojima by claiming that if he ever pitched a TV show to a TV network, that he would be laughed out of the studio. And with all due respect, he would be laughed out of that TV studio.
If you'd like to read the article for yourself, I've linked it in the description for your convenience. The reason why the article is archived in the Wayback Machine is because of what I mentioned earlier. Hideo Kojima himself actually took down the interview because of how upset he was with what Agnes had to say about him.
And you know what? The biggest example of what I'm talking about is the game Death Stranding. I have never seen the greatest form of what is called ego death, when somebody's egotism is challenged and then just completely shattered. And when I talk about an ego being shattered, what I mean is that Death Stranding is just seen as this really pretentious, overly ambitious game that is just not liked by Americans because we like shooty games, even though Hideo Kojima used to make fucking shooty games that he just tried to fill with a bunch of political preaching. You know what? Death Stranding is not a bad idea for a game. You can turn walking into gameplay. You can turn climbing into gameplay. Everybody has already made the comparison between this game and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is much more fun, though, because the world itself is filled with so many different variables that those variables can make the idea of traversing the world a much more complicated process. You know, you can fly around and glide. You can climb things. When it rains, you can't climb things. You can set things on fire. Death Stranding is just walking and more walking and climbing and more walking and cutscene. And yes, our game looks beautiful. Please buy. Go fuck yourself if you're American, by the way. Bottom line, these problems are not good. Like I like Metal Gear. I still replay Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 sometimes, even though it has all of the same problems that I described earlier, and I just said a lot of bad things about Hideo Kojima. But there is, or at least there used to be, a thin line that these games would follow that would actually contribute to the experience overall, and you would have fun, and you'd be like, wow, that was a really good story, and it was a fun game. And a lot of the games that I mentioned here, like Half Life 1 and 2, and Uncharted, and The Last of Us, all of these games have these design flaws in them. But I still like these games. I still enjoy them. I still think they're actually worth playing at least once. But bottom line, all of these problems do not deserve to be copied. These are not things that should be seen in games ever again. Please let us stop this. Like, let's stop. Just stop it.
We got a #1 victory royale. Yeah, Fortnite, we bout to get down. 10 kills on the board right now. Just wiped out Tomato Town.